has the American left failed to be persuasive? And what could we do better? First of all, I'm not saying we should give up fighting for anyone's rights. That would be foolish. People are people. Those would be bad policy ideas and downstream of the same unaddressed messaging issue. But the stakes are high, something isn't working, and it's worth self-reflecting. And I bet you the morally purest, furthest left person you know does not and cannot talk to moderate voters, or Republicans, or average Americans. They're terrified to, and they know they won't be convincing. That pursuit of personal perfection and purity alone is not enough. You're weird, you're unlikable, and you're cringe. And when you've vainly made yourself the hero of minorities' rights, you fumbled that bag, and rights with it. You think we should do something more effective to reach the goal we both care about? A month ago, a memo went around, and it was kind of sad, but important. This group found clusters of terms that were pushing people away, but on the left this was received badly, because we said, we are not going to give up fighting for these issues, and then ignored it. But we missed the lesson. It's not what we stand for, it's how we talk about it. There's a tremendous power in expectations, in first impressions. I've said this before and I'll say it again. Indoctrination is conditioning at scale. Stop trying to argue with Pavlov's dogs about the nuances of bells and deciding you have to blame the dogs or get rid of the bells. You're not acknowledging what Pavlov has done, and you're not going to win on those terms. The dogs are really just hungry, and until you change your framing, you're not going to make any progress. People tuned into the radical right media sphere are constantly thrown buzzwords with negative connotations and propaganda around them. So it's not about substance, it's about context and primed expectation. When you hear critical race theory, what comes to mind? Because people aren't disagreeing about the same topic. Did you hear about critical race theory in a boring, dry college class? One of many words just about studying groups of people in history, in society, a lens to analyze how well or not well we're all doing? Or did you hear it in a context of terror thrown around by Fox News hosts? I don't think people disagree on policy, on substance, on topics as much as we might think. But we're having two very different conversations using the same literal words that are two very different words in their meaning. And we're going to go through all the groups of words in that memo, but first, I have a background in design and I want to talk about that. When you're designing any product, even a tech product like an app, people have a strong first impression. They build an expectation from something as simple as the description, or similar stuff they've used before. They get an idea into their head and they hang on to it. That makes sense. Brains are computers. We want to be efficient. We want to be prepared. We want to prime ourselves for the minimal expectation. And what I've seen in a lot of research, projects, and experiments I myself have conducted, if people are unhappy with something, it's not necessarily because that feature is good or bad in and of itself. Everyone's strongest go-to comparison point, the strongest indicator whether they feel positively or negatively about the whole app, is their expectation. This is why it's super important if you're doing user research, like a survey or an interview or something. You are very careful with your words and you have a script so you don't bias the results. And teams can waste so much time and money arguing and debating in meetings, tweaking features back and forth, when really if they just change the App Store page a little bit, change the screenshots, the whole problem would go away. Because it's not what is, it's about this preemptive idea people have of what something is. And if you want to be effective, just go around. Is there another different, better way we could do this? If you want to just tell people they're wrong about their impressions or to feel a certain way, you can do that, but you get nothing from that. And it's going to keep happening. You always get better results if you say less, listen more, you take all the feedback, and you understand where and why it's coming from, and then address the root cause. So please, in good faith, keep that all in mind. Let's go through the categories in the memo. Therapy speak words, like safe space, or violence in an emotional context. These words have an elite connotation. They're taught, shared, and used at college levels, at corporate levels, and at therapy levels that not everyone can afford or has access to. So while you think you're starting a conversation about emotional comfort and inclusion, this makes a lot of people feel uncomfortable, which is not only practically awkward, but makes the whole therapy empathy branding kind of seem hypocritical. Next, seminar room language, postmodernism, critical theory, Overton window. These are technical words most people don't know, or rather don't understand. For example, did you know that the typical culture talking points way of thinking of the American right now actually checks more boxes of postmodernism than the left? You probably didn't, and that's okay, because it doesn't matter. People don't trust what they don't understand. Organizer jargon. When you talk in terms of groups and systems instead of people, you lose people. Words like housing insecurity. You get nothing from talking in such an impersonal way about one of the most personal, relatable issues for any voter. And I hate that this category is on here the most. Gender and orientation correctness. Millions of Americans think cisgender is a mean word because they have only ever heard it in a hostile context, whether that's on Fox News or in an argument. And no, they did not Google it first. Another great example is chest feeding. These are some of the least efficient battles you can pick with people. You are not going to win an argument on the optics of saying chest feeding with someone who doesn't know what a trans person is. Same goes for words like patriarchy. We can and should support science funding, but if I demand as a prerequisite everyone is proficient in the vocabulary of quantum mechanics, I'm not getting science funding anytime soon. The shifting language of racial constructs. The most infamous example is Latinx, a word so desperate to shed the masculine Latino that it disregards the grammar of Spanish. It's right up there with spelling folks with an X. Who is this for? These are virtue signals that make me cringe and tend to be really reductive and racist. It's never a good look to brand yourself as the inclusive champion of everybody, because you are not everybody and you will end up speaking for people who are not like you, and you'll always also end up leaving out people who are not like you. And I'm begging my fellow white people who want to do good things on topics like this to say less and listen more. Don't use race like the ball in an argument. Black and brown people are people with problems, not a separate, standalone, magical topic. And it's painfully obvious when usually white leftists seem to prioritize being the wokest person in the book club instead of safety, affordability, fair treatment, and calling out any racist people or old racist laws still on the books that stand in the way of that. And the final topic is explaining away crime. Systemic issues are different than personal issues. And the people in bad areas struggling to get by are the most likely to be the victims of crime. And I'm all for justice reform, but when it seems your priority is the criminals and not the victims, it rubs a lot of people the wrong way and makes you seem disingenuous. And it comes off like crime is a very faraway theoretical thing to you, which it often is. I think everyone's on board with justice, safety, and fairness as topics. But if they don't think you're being practical about your priorities there, you'll lose them in the conversation. So let's bring it back. On the whole, a lot of people on the left, especially white people, are coming off in a way that seems elite, disingenuous, not interested in including everyone in the conversations, using it more as a purity testing book club flex, where real issues and real people who are minorities and aren't doing as well are theoretical. It comes off as weird, judgy, elite. Ironically, in a word, privileged. Start with the basics, basic topics, basic needs, and be relatable to people. If that's hard for you, if you can't, if you don't know what that is a privilege you need to unpack. If you went to college, great, you're lucky. That's not normal. If you read theory, great, you're lucky. That's not normal. Most people's daily mental budget for concerns is too filled up with what are they going to do to stay safe and put food on the table. There's no time to learn all this vocabulary. It's not a practical use of time. Are you trying to help them or feel good about yourself, using them to do it? Could you talk with someone who really doesn't agree with you? Or would you be too scared? And would you make it too awkward? And would they walk away not at all convinced? Make a change. Find common ground as people, as Americans. Humanize, don't tokenize. Confusion, shame, misunderstanding, exclusion, condescension. You're freaking people out. I want to do better because they actually want to win.